Imagine you're the brand new CEO of a financial institution that is struggling, and on top of that, you're a brand new mom. Even though this isn't a typical client for my personal business, this is a real life scenario and things that I deal with every day as a financial institution examiner. My client was anxious, overwhelmed, and hopeless. Everything was a disaster. Today I'm sharing just a couple of the things that I did to help her become confident, clear, and totally in control of her finances. And this is something that you can do with your own financial situation. Because I found in my career that business finances are not completely different from personal finances. So let's get started. Hi, I'm Kristen. I audit billion-dollar financial institutions, and I'm a six-figure corporate girlie. And now I help women strategically align their finances to achieve their highest goals and dreams. If you've ever thought that you can't possibly get a handle on your finances, you absolutely can, and this story proves it. My CEO walked into a financial mess. This was at the end of the pandemic when inflation was sky high and the cost of everything had just exploded. She was at the end of the rental lease for her building that she was in, and that was actually going to double because the cost of everything had gone up so quickly and she couldn't afford it. Not only that, but she wasn't making any money for her financial institution, and she just was barely staying afloat. The very first thing I did with this new CEO was work on her mindset. I walked in and I introduced myself and I sat down and I asked how she was doing and how things were going. And she burst into tears and she said she didn't know what was going on and she couldn't see her way through all the mess and she didn't know where to start and she didn't feel like she was actually qualified to be the CEO. One of the things that I do with new CEOs and new CFOs and anybody in the C-suite that comes in that's new is I'll look over their resume. I want to get a feel for who they are and what their experience is and what their education is. And I sat there and I just reminded her of who she was and where she came from and the hard things that she had to do in the past. And so we just took a moment to remind her that she was chosen and that she was more than capable of leading this financial institution out of the mess that it's in into something even better. So sometimes that's all you need is actually to have a little reframe and remind yourself of the difficult things that you've been through in the past and remind yourself that you can do the same thing again. For example, one of the things that I'm struggling with right now is imposter syndrome. As I'm going through and I'm trying to grow my YouTube channel, one of the things that comes up for me is feeling like, who am I to teach women about finances? What do I even know? And I have to just accept that that is something that's coming up for me and remind myself that this is my calling in life. This is something that I've been working on for years and years and years. And my own experience in the financial industry, as well as my life experiences, have all led me up to this point. So you have to challenge those thoughts and then just remind yourself that you are strong and capable and you can do hard things even if your mind is maybe telling you a lie. You have to remember deep down what your actual truth is. The very next step is tactical. This is when we looked at and started prioritizing her highest needs. I looked at her financial statements and I realized she has no cash. She has no money set up so that if someone needs to come in and get a loan from her financial institution, she had nothing left in the bank because everything was sitting in a long-term, low-yielding investment. And so the very first thing we did was we started looking at those investments that she could cash out early and start to get some liquidity back into her financial institution so she could actually pay her bills and fund loans for her customers. If you're getting a lot of value out of this content, I need to ask you a favor. Please like and subscribe. It really helps my channel. Thank you. The next thing that we did was we went through all of her expenses and we figured out what was necessary, what wasn't, where she could cut, what she needed to keep, and we started to strategically align her own finances into areas that better served her. So we took a lot of her investments and we moved them over into high yielding, short-term areas so that she had cash flow coming in and she also had access to more of her money if she needed it. Then we went through and we started talking about her rental space. So she was in a pretty large building and I sat down and I told her, I said, I walked into this building and it's a lot of space and you don't actually have a lot of customers here during the day. So in my opinion, I don't think you actually need this much space. Is there somewhere else you could go that could actually save you a little bit more money and have a little bit more of a smaller footprint? And she actually brought up that she was at the end of a 5-year lease and she needed to actually renew that lease for another 5 years and it was going to cost her double. But you can kind of see the parallels of things you would do for your own personal finances. You would look at where your money's going, try to reallocate it to other areas, and maybe try to even make more money. Figuring out where your money is going, have an emergency fund, and creating a plan for every dollar. I personally discovered how important an emergency fund I discovered how important an emergency fund is at the moment that I didn't have it, and that's when I lost my job unexpectedly. I discovered how important it was to have a sinking fund for emergency car repairs when I had to go take my car in and get my brakes changed, and I had the money to pay for it. These are the kinds of things that you can implement in your own budgets. Awareness with your own financial situation and being able to reprioritize your money, finding ways to stop the bleeding, is just the first step in financial preparedness. The very last thing that we did was focus on the small wins. Honestly, when you're making changes to your finances, it can feel like things can take forever and that small changes aren't going to add up to a lot. For my client, it only took as little as a week for her to start shifting money around and getting enough liquid cash on hand so that she could fund operations for her financial institution. It really doesn't have to take a lot of time. And then once she started that, the momentum began and she was able to see even more changes over the next year. So let me share with you one of the changes that I'm really proud of because it saved her a lot of money. She was able to reach out to the contacts she already had. She didn't have to do anything special or do any kind of networking. She already had people that she didn't think of before, but as we were talking, she was remembering that she has these resources available to her, and they were able to help her find a really small, cute little building that she was able to actually purchase. So there is no rent for her anymore. She has this building that she owns outright now, and it's perfect for her. It's the perfect size, and she actually saved a ton of money doing that. Within 1 year, she saved $98,000 worth of expenses, and it wasn't just for the rental property, it was for a whole bunch of other things. And she made $297,000 by the end of that year in profit. That's $167,000 more than she made the year prior. So you can see how quickly for her, making decisions and strategically aligning her finances and making those tough decisions got her to where she is now. So if we break this down into a monthly figure, she was actually earning $8,000 a month the year before, and now she's making more than $23,000 a month. Isn't that incredible? Every decision that you make financially is either going to help you or it's going to hurt you. And over time, that will compound. So you have to take strategic action. Even if you have to start small, there are huge wins over time. I actually was just recently there for one of her audits, and she thanked me and said, "I'm actually making money now." And she was so proud to show off her cute little financial institution, and it is just such a beautiful and amazing change for her. I'm so happy that she's exuding confidence, and this is exactly why I do what I do. Grab your free money block quiz in the description below. I give you actionable steps on how to overcome your specific money block, and get on my Fearless Budget Blueprint waiting list. I have an entire program that's coming out very soon. You're going to want to grab that because it's going to clarify everything about finance, and I mean everything. I love that with my help, my CEO goes home at the end of the day and she's filled with peace. This is something that I want all women to experience. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.